Redditors who work with the public. What's your most bizarre interaction with a customer? Story 1. I work at a pizza delivery business. Had a lady one day call in and order for delivery. Sure, what's the address? I'm not going to tell you. I'm sorry, if you don't tell me the address, how are we supposed to deliver to you? I don't know what the address is. Well, if you don't know where you're at, again, how are we supposed to deliver to you? So you want to take my order? Not without an address? Well, I guess it'll just order somewhere else then. I guess you will. Story 2. I've told this story somewhere else. But in a nutshell, back when I worked at a hardware store, I had a woman scream and cry at me for using my item scanner on her items because its laser would make her sick and/or make her sickness worse. Her basket was stacked, and she was effectively asking me to hold the line up for a half hour to dial in her product codes manually. She also screamed if I made eye contact. When she left, she told me something to the effect of, "I don't want you to get hurt, but if something bad happens to you, it's because I'm thinking about it." Retail. Story 3. Worked as a dog bather and had this corgi named Potato. He was friggin' adorable. I don't know what I really expected, but when the owner came to pick him up, he was this big bodybuilder covered in tattoos, and he had this lime green leash, and when Potato saw him, he got excited, and this big Greek statue-looking guy just yells, "Potato, stop that." And I still think about it. Story 4. I was a page at NBC Studios in Burbank in the early 2000s, and part of our job was working the gift shop and ticket counter for The Tonight Show. Two guys come in and say, "We're here for the Lakers game." I was like, "I'm sorry, that game isn't here. It's over at the Staples Center." One of them just gives me a look and says it's NBC. Right? I proceed to explain to him that while NBC is airing the Lakers game, we don't shoot at the studio, and we take our cameras and crew and shoot it at the Staples Center where the Lakers play. The one guy turns around and scribbles on a piece of paper and hands it to me. It says 2 Lakers tickets for insert random name. And he says, like, "What about this?" Thankfully, my supervisor jumped in and said, "Oh, you'll have to come back Thursday morning. We'll see you then, okay." And that seemed to placate them, and they left. My supervisor tells me this happened quite often, and when you tell them to come back, they rarely do. Story 5. I used to work in an adult store. It was a clean and classy joint, mostly marketed toward female clientele. One afternoon, an older Eastern European customer came in asking for the blue pills that come in the bottle. He was looking for Viagra. I tried to explain that we didn't carry that, but he was insistent that I was hiding it from him. I told him he needed to speak with his doctor to get a prescription, and he just got real mad. It soon became clear that blue pills was code for something. With a prostitute, I told him we didn't have this either, and that what he was suggesting was illegal. He got more angry, because what I'm wanting is to pay with you, stupid girl. Then he started to come around the counter, making a squeezy gesture with his hands. I flipped out on him and ran him out of the store and called the police. He came back a few weeks later, and I told him he was banned for seeking illegal services. Never saw him again. He'll just never forget, "Give me your blue pills, you stupid girl. I pay for your, what is problem?" Story 6. I was a supervisor at a call center for a major online retailer who was involved in a data breach a few years ago. As usual, we required all of our customers to change their passwords. I had to take over a call from a lady who was absolutely refusing to change her password. I tried to explain as nicely as possible, and she kept me on the phone for an hour insulting me and screaming about how wrong this was. Ultimately, she told me that I personally was worse than Hitler and that making her change her password was an offense worse than the Holocaust. No joke. I'm not exaggerating at all. Story 7. Librarian. "Oh, it looks like you have an overdue book, a biography." Customer. "Oh, yeah, Jesus told me to burn that one." Librarian. Customer. "Will there be a fine?" Story 8. In my first years in the Army, I also worked a part-time job as an optician in the local mall. One day, a lady came in with her mother about age 40 and 60, and they were quite hyper and giggling at each other. I asked if I could help them, and they had a prescription for lenses. No problem. She then asks if she can use her existing frames. And I was like, "Sure, we could just do lenses." She proceeds to hand me a pair of extremely cheap sunglasses she got from a dollar store. I told her that there was no way those glasses would stand up to having lenses changed out. She insisted that I already said she could. I asked her if she was sure, because it was almost guaranteed they would be destroyed in the process. She still insisted. I pointed out the sign we had up saying we weren't responsible for damages. It was next to the register, and asked her one last time. She said yes again. Okay. I put them in the hot box, a box of heated sand you use to loosen up plastic frames to get the lenses out, and they melted into goo pretty much instantly, as expected. She was over my shoulder watching with these wild eyes, and when I pulled them out after a few seconds, she started screaming about how we destroyed her glasses, and now we owe her free glasses. Her mom got in on the action at that point, and started shouting also about how I did it on purpose. I handed them back to her and said something like, "Ma'am, I told you so." They went into even more hysterics, and by this time we're attracting glances from passersby at the mall. I just walked into the back room to the lab guy and was like, "Dude, You deal with this, I'm done. I then watched as he masterfully overcharged her about 100 for a 20 frame. It was on the display rack for 100, but we had a pile of the same frames in the discount drawer for 20, giving her a 20 discount in the process. I was there when she picked them up in about an hour, acting like she won the lottery at my expense because I was so incompetent. I was still young and had no idea the insanity people would go through to save a few dollars and stick it to the man. Story 9. I worked at a smoothie shop. I don't have many wild stories other than the fact this dude came back and complained about how the smoothie was too cold and proceeded to yell at another employee. We didn't know how to react. I was trying my hardest not to laugh, but bruh. You go to an ice cream shop and say you want your money back after you discover ice cream is cold. Story 10. At a coffee shop. We had a customer come in one day and tell us in a very awkward and stilted manner that he would like to become a regular, but that he wanted a wordless transaction. He would come every day at the same time and get the same drink, and he wanted us to ring him up and give him the drink without anyone speaking to him. It was definitely weird, but we did it for him, passing the info along to the other staff as a kind of tribal knowledge, and he did come every weekday and buy his latte without speaking to or looking at anyone. It worked very well until one day I was working with a new girl and I had stepped into the back room to get something and I suddenly heard him screaming out front. The new girl had said, "Hi, what can I get you?" And he responded by screaming in her face, "What is wrong with you? I told you people not to talk to me," and storming out. We never saw him again. Story 11. A guest refused to have his wife check her code. Our venue doesn't allow guests having their code in the hall because of fire safety reasons. He got up at the point of furiously shouting while his wife was trying to tell him it wasn't a big deal. He only let up after we told him we were within our rights to deny him entry and would be able to call the police. Our coat check service is free BTW. Story 12. Old guy kept coming up to my register with his oddly silent, uncomfortable wife. He gave me a cheesy grin every time before he rolled back around and said, "I see why they keep you up here, sweetie. You're the charmer." Huh. Mind you, I haven't said much to this guy outside of ringing up his wife's stuff. He wouldn't let it go either, because they hung around the store for a solid 2 hours. Guy would watch me over the displays, and if I met his gaze, there goes another cheesy grin. He comes up again, and at this point, I'm quietly bargaining with God to strike me down, because I don't want to deal with this creep anymore. He makes his wife buy a hat, so he has an excuse to come up to my register. "Have you thought of going to charm school?" "You don't need it, dear." I force a laugh and hope my personal is over, but that's wishful thinking. One more time, this man and his wife, who is now eyeing me up like she wants something, stroll by. He leans in, and I lean back because I don't want any of what he's offering. "You better cancel that application at charm school. See you around," and off they finally go. Story 13. She bought one item, and I asked her if she wanted a bag. She screamed, "I was hoping you wouldn't ask that stupid question. Is there some rule that black people don't want bags?" And I still did not know whether she wanted a bag or not. So I awkwardly put her item down in front of her. She threw it into a bag and huffed away. Story 14. I have a million stories, but today I'll share this one. It's been posted on social media before, but it was a few years ago, so let me try and remember how it went. I was working at a theater one morning, and an old man scoots by in a wheelchair. He lingers by the service desk, so I ask him politely if I can help him. He responds in Spanish, asking if I speak it. I understand it, but can't speak it, so I shake my head. "Parli Italiano?" I ask. He says no. Asks in French if I speak French. I say no. We bounce between languages for a minute until finally he asks if I speak English. I sigh, because it was the language I greeted him in, and say yes. He asks if we have a lost and found, and I ask him what he's missing. He holds up a hand missing a finger and asks if we found one. I, unfazed, respond, "No, sir, not today." He wheels off. Story 15. When I worked in Thrift store, it was protocol for the production workers to write a number with a red dry erase marker on all of the electronics to indicate the date they went out on the floor. This would help determine which items to get off of the shelves if they had been sitting there too long and weren't selling. It was also our policy that electronic items were final sale because people would buy them and break them or remove parts and then try to return them. A woman came in one morning trying to return a small flat-screen TV. I explained to her that all electronics were final sale and showed that it was indicated on her receipt. I was feeling generous that day since she was polite and considered returning it anyway if it wasn't working. So asked her the reason. She pointed out the little red dry erase number and said I need to return this because it has the mark of the beast on it. I was taken aback and asked her to explain further. She explained that she took the TV home, and when she plugged it in, the TV displayed static and a low-frequency sound that hypnotized her and her children. She said that Satan was trying to communicate with her through the TV. I didn't know what to say, so I just explained to her that the dry erase is just a date and showed her that it rubs right off with my thumb. The number was not 666, by the way. I broke policy and allowed her to exchange it for something else. all while having no idea how to react to what she just told me. You bet you as soon as she left, I went and plugged that TV in to see what happened, and of course it was normal. Story 16 told before, but it is good. Woman calls pizza restaurant for delivery and requests shortened delivery time. Manager tells her we can't do that. Woman gives up and calls competing pizza place. Woman calls us back and tells us that the other place could do what she wanted. My manager, confused, expresses that he is happy for her. She calls back again and tells the manager that nobody better vandalize her house because she canceled her order, and if her house gets wrecked, she will know it was us. My boss, even more confused, assures her that no one cares enough about her canceled order to seek retribution, and that lots of people cancel orders. Seemingly satisfied, she hangs up, and we think that it ends there. About an hour later, 2 police officers show up to talk to the manager. This woman preemptively called the cops on a pizza restaurant for a hypothetical crime that hasn't happened and wasn't going to happen. Story 17. I used to work in a call center for a mobile phone network. Many years ago, a customer called as he had entered his PIN too many times and blocked his phone. After doing data protection checks, I told him that I had a 10-digit code that would restore his phone and asked if he had a pen and paper. He confirmed he had, and I proceeded to read out the number, at which points he says, "Not on me." Why did he think I was asking if he had a pen and paper if not to write something down? I wasn't asking if he owned stationery. I also had one customer complain that he had glued tin foil to his phone to stop it giving him cancer, but now he could not get a signal. Story 18. I used to work in a luxury perfume shop while at uni, and I had more bizarre interactions than I can count. My favorite was an old lady. She came in wearing a dirty housecoat and slippers, violently searching in the store. I asked her if I can help, but she said no and went on with her search. After a while, she came to me and said, "Okay, I give up and just ask, do you have horse food?" I told her politely we didn't, and she started aggressively yelling. I knew it so much it took us at least 10 minutes to calm her down. She then filed a complaint and left. Story 19. I used to work in a small public library. There was an older business owner that came in for a weekly club lunch meeting. These meetings were in a back meeting room that I had no control over. He came into the library a couple of times furious at me because his chair was too cold. He informed me that for the rest of the winter, I needed to sit in his chair before he got there, so his chair would be warm for him. Story 20. I have a friend who works at Waffle House, and they have regulars like every other restaurant has, but this one was a true crack addict. She would come in and talk to the workers as they were yelling out orders for other people. The thing is, she would talk about her dead son all the time. She said that he died in a car crash, but he killed himself. She'd also talk about the KKK. No one liked her, but they kind of just went with it, because if they didn't, then she'd lose her mind. She'd call the work phone, but she never ordered anything. She just wanted someone to talk to. She finally got banned from that specific Waffle House. I got to meet her before she got banned, and she gave me coupons for ibuprofen from CVS and kept touching my friend who wasn't working that day. Story 21. A woman came in and wanted a morning after pill while my coworker was getting it. She told me about the which made the pill necessary. With focus on the guys, it had been a disappointment, and apparently why she decided she didn't want the guys' children after all. Since she didn't speak the language very well, this was mostly done with gestures and facial expressions, but I unfortunately got the gist. Story 22. Used to work at a skate shop, usually alone. Some guy came in 2 days in a row, stayed for a few hours. He wouldn't give me his real name, just telling me to call him alive. Over the course of those 2 days, he told me that he believed he had a parasite in his brain, that satellites were watching us, and about a movie idea he had among other things. I was relieved when I didn't see him again until about a year or so later, when the shop threw a party for Halloween. I ran into a live who was there alone. He pulled me aside to tell me about another idea for a movie he had and wanted me to be in it. I made an excuse to get away and never saw him again. Nothing too crazy, but it was odd. Story 23. I work as a waiter-bartender at a hotel, and last summer we had this freck woman who put so much sugar in her coffee that it was turned into this mush that she'd eat with a spoon. Story 24. I've seen many crazy people in the short amount of time my work required human interaction. I really don't know how people do it. One time this woman came into the place where I was working. Behind me on the wall were some abstract black and white photos that were not showing anything special. One was maybe just showing a really blurred female face, although it's more my interpretation of the shape rather than the source image. The others were just artsy stains. She was normal at first. Then she noticed the photos and started to get really upset. She asked me what that was and why would we put something like that up. Then she went on to say the images were depicting abuse and terrorism. Apparently the face one she saw as some beaten-up abuse victim, and the stains looked like terrorism to her. She went on and on about it. They really traumatized her. Story 25. We was on a big job in a town center and could hear some woman shouting. She was having a full argument walking towards us, but we couldn't see who she was arguing with. When she saw us looking over confused without breaking stride, she said, "Don't mind me, lads, I'm mental," and went back to her argument. Now, obviously, with herself. Story 26. So, I work in optical sales. This is about the strangest customer my manager and I had ever dealt with. So, I walk into work, and my manager is working with a patient, and there's another one seated at another desk waiting to be helped. I clock in and introduce myself to the man. "Hi there. My name is Low Speed. How can I help you today?" He points at my manager and says, "Actually, she was helping me." "Oh, okay." I turn to my manager. "Would you like for me to pull up his insurance so that you can just run him through real quick when you're available?" She replies, "Yes, absolutely. Sir, Low Speed is just going to pull up your insurance, and then he'll help you." I turn back and smile to him and ask, "So, what's your DOB so I can look you up?" Hey, race where things start to go downhill. The guy leans in, inches away from my face, and whispers, "Can you not take no for an answer?" So I noped out and just stood up and went in the back until he left. Fast forward 3 weeks, and this guy ordered his glasses with my manager and has received them, loved them according to her. He calls the store and gets me. Yeah, so I bought these glasses and I think I want to upgrade to transitions. How much would that cost? "Oh, no problem, sir. What's your DOB so I can look your profile up? Is manager available?" "No, sir. Just me today. I think ideal I could talk to manager." She, and I quote, "sounds nicer than you on the phone." Clicky eventually gets a hold of her and orders the transitional lenses, loves them according to her. Again, fast forward another 3 weeks, he calls in and get manager on the line. Immediately starts telling her about how he doesn't like the glasses and wants a return. She's tired of his shenanigans, so she just says that's fine, and he can bring them back whenever he feels like it. He then says, "Excuse me, I paid for the glasses over the phone. Why can't I return over the phone?" He's sounding very upset at this point. My manager just looks confused. "Sir, you still have the glasses. Moreover, I couldn't process a return over the phone if I wanted to. Our system literally will not allow it." "Well, this is just ridiculous. What if I just mail you the glasses then?" "Sir, we still can't process a card return over the phone." "Okay, then what if I mail you my card?" "Excuse me? Mail us your credit card." "Really, no, my debit card." At this point, my manager was just floored by this guy and finally broke character. "So you want to mail us your debit card?" "Yes, it's sir, I'm sorry, but that's the worst idea you've ever had." Click, I've told this before, but I once worked at a pizza place and some dude came in and wanted a pizza with every one of our toppings. We had like 12 to 15 different toppings, and there was no way they were going to properly fit on a medium. We told him he could do it, what the price was, and that it wasn't going to cook properly because pizzas aren't designed to cook with that much on them. He said fine, so we cooked it, and it was all up, and we gave it to him. A few minutes later, he comes back and said, "Yeah, I up. God, just gonna meet lovers. Paid for both. Probably threw the first one away." Only time I've really ever talked to someone like that who admitted being the problem. Story 27, I have a really nice positive one for you. Still odd though, cause it was Glastonbury. I was working the front counter in the cafe at the foot of the tour, loved it, and would make people feel welcome while a guy came in looking like a full-on Buddhist monk, orange robe, shaved head, etc. He had started traveling, got a small house truck together with his family, and was asking a few questions about the area, my girlfriend, and I gave him as much help as we could, even invited him to outhouse later. We made him feel good and welcome. Just before he left, he took my hand and pressed something into it and folded my fingers over, told me thank you very much, etc. and turned to leave. I opened my hand, and there was a bud of nice quality skunk. Story 28, the most bizarre was when an old guy, a frail, grandpa-esque person in his 70s, maybe spent about 20 minutes just complimenting me, telling me stuff like my eyes shine with kindness and intelligence, and that my face is the classic, innocent beauty of the muses, cue all-encompassing lolwood on my part. Then my boss called my name, a fairly generic one that I unfortunately happen to share with a fairly well-known poet's muse, which prompted him to launch into a poem. Never in my life have I felt more uncomfortable, and I couldn't even excuse myself because I just couldn't get a word in. He even asked his similarly old female friend to come over and look at me as well. It was incredibly creepy and strange and awful. My boss had to shove a stack of mostly blank papers into my hand and give me a bullshit task to complete just to get me away from there with minimal fuss. The worst part, I saw the guy wandering around the store around closing as well, and he only seemed to scamper away when my boyfriend showed up to pick me up. Story 29, not really a customer, but I'm a nurse, and I got a patient who, as I walked into his room, I caught him eating his own feces as I gown up and tried to stop him from continuing because, well, that's gross AF. He started yelling at me to stop and punch me in the chest and face. I hadn't put on a face barrier except a face mask my up, which didn't cover my eyes, and he got his feces onto my face. Though he came in alert and oriented X4 and was very pleasant, I came to the quick conclusion there was a loose screw somewhere there. Note, sadly, this isn't very uncommon. Story 30, former retail manager here. I have a million, but the one that stuck out to me as the most was this weird guy who never spoke all and would always come in late at night. One night about an hour after we closed, I was getting ready to leave when I start walking towards the alarm, and there's the dude standing in the middle of the aisle staring me dead in the eyes. I froze for a good 10 seconds, then asked him if he was okay and that we were closed. In response, he frowned, pulled up his shirt, and rubbed his belly. I repeated that we were closed, walked over to him, and started to walk him towards the entrance. When he realized what I was doing, he turned and ran deeper into the store. I was debating calling the cops, but I had been there for 11 hours already and didn't want to spend another hour dealing with him, so I decided to follow him and try again. I caught up for him in the bulk handing section. He was standing staring at banana chips. I told him we were closed, and he started wailing on the big, making some high-pitched whining sound. I broke and gave him so banana chips. He smiled and was passive enough for me to walk him to the door. When we got through the first set of doors, I spun around and locked them. When I turned around, he was inches away from me and gave me a big hug. Shocked and weirded out, I sort of just stood there. Then he pulled his face right into my face, whispered, "You big good," and gave me a peck on the cheek. I took a step back into the door. He ran his wet fingers through my beard and skipped out into the darkness. Story 31, I'm a nurse practitioner. I have hundreds of stories. My favorite is the old man who we prepped for endoscopy procedure, and part of the bowel prep was giving him apple juice mixed with a laxative. He was old and started to show signs of dementia, but later on he calmly and lucidly said, "Ma'am, if you ever make my butt dribble like that again, I'll find out where you live, and whatever juice you gave me, and pour it down your throat too." Deadpan. No grin, no humor. To this day, I don't know if he was mad or kidding. Story 32, when I was a delivery driver in college, I was taking an order over the phone. The woman said she wanted to pay with card. When I asked her for her card number, she flipped out, started to literally scream at me at the top of her lungs over the phone, accused me of being a thief, saying she knew who I was and I was a bad guy. For clarity, I have no idea who this idiot was. Eventually, she just hung up and we canceled the order. All of this because I asked for her card number when she was trying to pay over the phone with her card. I have no idea how this woman thinks credit cards work or how she was able to function in the world at all. Story 33, got all sorts of perverts back when I was in the dry cleaning biz. Had a guy just take off all of his clothes, sans, underwear in front of me and asked me to dry clean all that. Walked out in his skivvies. Story 34, I work in the customer service for a hiking association, and we had a lady come in complaining about one of our staff cabins. Got to the point where we had to call said cabin and inform them. Started phone call with, "I'm here with a nice lady," as she proceeded to yell out, "I am not nice, thanks for stating the obvious." Story 35, had a regular come in and repeatedly ask which shampoo and conditioner to use for her hair. I once had to read out the chemical ingredients on the back and improvise their effectiveness at hair maintenance, LOL. Nothing wrong with worrying about your hair, but she was asking a dude who used to use shower gel as shampoo. Story 36, Eve worked at several restaurants. However, about a year ago, this is how a convo went with this lady. "Hello there. What can I get you today?" "I'll like a sub." "Okay, what type of sub would you like?" "You know, a sub. Just make me a sub, ma'am. We have over 12 different types of subs here." She points at my boss, so he makes it when I come in sometimes. He knows how I like it. My boss, very confused, goes, "Oh yes, hi. Nice to see you again." With a "Who the is this lady?" Look on his face, he says, "And what sub am I making? What type?" She goes, "You know, my sub." He goes, "Okay, what type though?" She starts to get very mad and goes, "Why sub?" "The one you make me all the time when I come to Spider, coming in only once every month or something." He goes, "I know what sub that is." "Was it turkey, roast beef?" She goes, "No, it's not. It's a SUB." Boss goes, "Italian. We call it the sub here." She goes, "Oh yes, that's it, SUB." He goes, "Okay. Coming right up, just wanted to say GTFO. Oh." So boss says, "What size bread?" Her, "Size bread? What is size bread, boss?" "We have 3 sizes, 6, 10, or 12-inch, or ick. I just want a sub." "Is that hard?" At this point, I was getting pretty pissed off, and so was my boss. I don't know if she was drunk, under stress, high. She was getting pretty upset, clearly. She goes, "Just give me the biggest one, biggest one." He goes, "Want white or wheat bread?" This is when all education went out the door. She asks white or wheat for what my boss, clearly pissed off, goes for the bread. "Would you like it on white or wheat bread?" She seriously says, "What kind of question is that?" "It's a SUB." Okay, at this point, if I were the boss, I would have told her to please leave. Don't talk like that to me. But my boss kept on asking her to the point she said, "Just make him Y sub, biggest one." He makes her sub, white bread. Default way we make it, she says it's for here. She gets the super sub, which is our biggest sub, and she goes, "This was on wheat bread." "Why is it on white?" She throws the tray with the sub on it back on the counter by the cashier and goes, "I'm not eating this thing. This isn't my sub like you made it before." Boss says, "Ma'am, how am I supposed to know what you had for lunch in my restaurant a month ago? I have hundreds of orders a day, and you expect me to remember yours all the time." She says, "Well, you do it with others." Boss says, "Ma'am, those people come in 3, sometimes 4 times a week and order the same thing, and have been coming in here for more than 8 years." She says, "So what? Just make my sub?" He said, I made your sub. It's right in front of you now. I have to get back to making orders for the others you cut in line. When you wanted to complain, she told us, enraged, I hope somebody comes and shoots you all up with a machine gun you, and stormed out. Oh, well, we never saw her again, ever. That was the most up thing that ever happened to me working with the public. Story 37, I was working at a cookie shop, and a guy who seemed tweaked out his mind came up. I did my welcome, we're doing a spiel, and he looked at my display and said, dude, why are you making the cookies out in public like that? I was like, WTF again. He was like, that's perverse, and started to throw his coat over the display. Needless to say, he was escorted out by security. Story 38, I worked as a support tech for an online company. Usually we do password resets and stuff. Had a woman call in because she forgot her password. Wouldn't give me any information that I could use to help her. She then accused me of racism. How could I know what race she was over the phone without knowing anything about her? She yelled many times at me and demanded some free stuff cause racism. She called me a honky and hung up, I'm not white. Story 39, a customer tried to argue with me over the price of CRV. I told her that the state controls how much CRV costs, not the store. She then goes on about how the grocery store across the street charges less for CRV. And so I asked her, did you buy a 24-pack of water? She replies, no. I explained to her that the state charges 5 cents per bottle. 24 bottles makes 1.20. And since she's buying two 24-packs, that totals to $2.40 for CRV. She weighs me off annoyingly and hands me the money to pay. When I gave her a change, she picks out a penny and says, no, I don't want this one. Give me a cleaner one. So I took the penny from her, reached down to my till, and then handed her the same penny back. She didn't notice when I worked at McDonald's my senior year of high school. A homeless man in a wheelchair demanded that I sell him a lottery ticket. He was obviously not all there, and so I decided to just roll with it. Suddenly, like a switch, he flipped out on me. He yelled at me, saying he works closely with the police and that if I was a prostitute, he would report me and have me arrested. This lasted for a good 10 minutes when finally one of my shift managers decided to step in and help me. The homeless man ends up buying one hamburger, but he sat in the lobby for the rest of my shift 2 hours. So many customers complained about his smell, and when my managers tried to kick him out, he started swatting the air, yelling profanities. We called the cops, and an hour later they showed up to wheel the man out. Never seen the man after that. Hope he's doing okay. Story 40, worked at a shop and had to get the infamous lick my guy to stop calling. So context, I was the only straight male with a clearly masculine voice at my job. Only 6 employees, including manager. I was relatively new. The girls apparently were being harassed by an anonymous caller for years. Turnover at our job was low, so all the girls had been there for a while. The anonymous caller would try to talk dirty with the girls, specifically asking for them to lick his. And when they got angry and insulted him, he would get off on it. Girls tried to hang up at first, apparently, but eventually got bored and with him. By the time I got there, however, it wasn't fun to troll him, and they just wanted it to stop. So one day, he calls Lick My, and one of my coworkers, visibly upset, says, stop calling, you creep. Then I ask what's up, and she explains who Lick My guy is. I wanted the store doing my usual rounds of cleaning, and he just keeps calling. So I tell her to let me answer next time he calls, when I say in my deeper, clearly masculine voice type for calling. He hangs up, he tries again, and keeps hanging up. Then I realize it, he's triggered. He only gets off from women. Knowing this is a golden opportunity, one sees it. He calls again, and I put on the softest, most feminine voice I have. I then basically go along with whatever he says. Lick your... You only if you lick my... After a short exchange, he basically says he's close, he's about to, and I say in my regular, deep, masculine voice here, talking to a man, and the dude literally shrieks, "Where at?" And I hang up on him. He calls back enraged. You lying, I know where you work. I am going to, kill you. I told him back, yeah, go clean yourself up and come over here. Obviously didn't, and he never called back. I'd freed my store of Lick My Guy. I worked a door-to-door charity fundraising job 2 summers ago. One man let me get through my whole talk. He was asking questions and seemed genuinely interested in the cause. He let me get out the payment form and started filling in and everything. I was buzzed, since we could get paid more if we got a few more sign-ups as a team that week. Then he hands me the form, turns around, and walks back inside. Have a nice night, mate. Hope you find some donors is all I got from him before he slammed the door. I'm sure he had a valid reason. But it just left me feeling really confused. It was especially frustrating since we were close to our sign-up goal that week. A colleague of mine from the same job told me about a man called Boris who opened the door wearing just a bathrobe, which he opened as the conversation went on. So I guess she saw Boris Johnson.